Hello and welcome to Trojans Live. It's basketball season, but it's about to be spring football season, and so it's time to get into it with one of the newest hires on the USC coaching staff. Welcome to the Trojan family, Clay McGuire, the new USC offensive line coach. John joins Sean and I on Trojans Live now. What's going on, Coach? How are you?
Oh, not much, man. I appreciate you guys having me in. I'm just making the commute down south right now, so I apologize if I lose you. But so far, so good.
So far, you sound good.
All right,
good to meet you. Yeah, I think the big thing that we read about you and have learned about you beforehand is that you have worked in this system more or less before. So explain how your style of coaching or the way you teach offensive line fits with this offense.
Well, just there's some familiarity. Obviously, we go back a long ways. The first thing everybody's going to talk about is our ties back to Coach Leach, and then obviously we played together, and I was a coach on staff there when Graham was our quarterback there at Texas Tech, and then we were also able to coach together at Washington State as well, and it's just it's been pretty neat to see all these guys from that tree kind of go off and put their own spin on things, and so I think in this business, familiarity and continuity is really important, and like I said, I think it was something I was able to bring that to the table coming here.
Coach, obviously it's always a busy offseason in college football, but so how did you end up getting here to SC?
Well, like I said, a lot had to do with Coach Harrell. Like I said, when they made the change on the offensive line, I know they interviewed some guys and eventually reached out to me and was able to interview. And then, like I said, a couple of days later, I was out here in Southern California. So it was kind of surreal for me. This is one of those jobs, like I said, it's the job, you get in the coaching profession to get a chance to coach at a place like Southern California. And so, like I said, being in the conference for 6 years, SC's always been the standard of the Pac-12, and excited to be a part of it and be on this side of it for once,
What do you know, Coach, about the room that you inherit? It returns 4 starters, but obviously you lose a big-time player in Elijah Vera-Tucker, who sounds like he's going to be a first-rounder here in not too long.
Yeah, I was hoping they'd do a good recruiting job and get him to come back for that extra year. That'd been nice.
That would have helped.
That'd have made my life a little bit easier. But no, it's a good group. It really is. They played a lot of football. We have some experience, but we also have some good young talent that'll come in and provide competition. And just being around what little we've been allowed to be around up to this point, the kids, they're really good kids. They work really hard and they're smart. And I've been really impressed with the amount of information and knowledge that they're able to retain. And so I'm excited about going out there and put my spin on things and seeing if we can, hopefully our plans are push this thing forward and really be, a force up front next year.
Coach, you talked about your spin on things, and that involves the run game. You talked a little about the importance of the run game in this offense. What does that mean in this system to have a running game to support that passing game?
Like I said, it has to be very complimentary. We're going to see, certain looks and boxes that are always going to be advantageous to run into. And so I think something that Coach Harrell's done a good job and definitely was great as a player was making sure we were always into the right runs, into the right looks. And, what that allows us to do up front is to really hone in and get great at blocking certain looks and certain fronts for certain situations so that, we can always, we don't have to practice the 15 exotic looks that somebody tries to force a square peg in a round hole, and so when we can get into the right plays at the right time, we should be very efficient in the run game.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk. We're talking to Clay McGuire, the new offensive line coach for USC. There's been a lot of talk about recruiting at this spot. And I'm just interested because, when you look at it, you say, what's the key to taking a kid from high school and having him become a first-round NFL draft pick? Is the key, finding the next Tyron Smith, who's just a physical unicorn? Or, I look at your history a little bit, and you have a kid like Andre Dillard, who was a 3-star prospect who, you coached and ends up being a first-round draft pick. So I assume at some point, he has the physical tools, but you had to develop him a little bit. What do you think is the key in recruiting? What are you looking for? Is it just always that lights-out prospect, or are there some physical tools that maybe you prioritize more?
Well, I think you have parameters. I think you have to, they have to have the measurables and the ability to do those things you're talking about to get to that level. But Sean can tell you this it's the ultimate developmental position. It doesn't matter if you play 1 year to 15 years in the NFL. You got to find ways to keep pushing yourself and find ways to make yourself the best football player you can possibly be. And so, obviously in the evaluation process, you got to make sure that, one, the guys have the measurables that you're going to want and that you should be able to get here. Two, they have the ability and work ethic and the discipline to trust the process and trust the program you put them in to be able to develop their skills. And I think, we've been able to tweak some things in the off season and implement some things that we've done in the past. And like I said, I think it's the ultimate developmental position. And if you're not developing, you're not getting any better. And so that's the goal, is when they get here to start them, have a baseline. And then when they leave here, whenever that may be 3 or 4 years, that they're at the peak, level of performance that they can possibly be, to give themselves a chance to play at the highest level.
Coach, we're coming up in here on some spring ball. I know it's coaches, they love this time of year. Players, not so much, Jordan, but it's an exciting time of year for sure. But, what are you looking about from this group for spring ball? What areas are you trying to get better? And I know there was some breaking news this offseason when you said, well, they might see some under center. I know SC fans were up in arms. So what are you working on in spring ball this coming up?
Well, the number one thing is we got to go out there and develop, really, you would like to say 10, but you really, maybe even just a top 8, and as you, and get to the NFL level, you really only have 7 to 8 old linemen on roster, and so, to sit there and people say they have a 2 deep is a lot of times, inaccurate. You usually, you got to try to find that core to develop and build some continuity and chemistry around that group. And I think that's the most important thing, is to find out who our guys are and make sure we're getting our best 5 out there and create competition from that standpoint. And then from there, once we do that, is to create chemistry and continuity amongst that group so we can play at a high level together. And so, but yeah, and then as we get into the schematics of things, that thing will continue to evolve, wherever Coach Harold takes it.
Clay McGuire, an exciting hire. We're looking forward to seeing spring ball, but then obviously into the fall, what he can do with this USC offensive line. Thanks, Coach. We will talk to you down the road for sure. Appreciate you jumping on Trojans Live.